Do you feel like there was a point in time for you where, you know, you as a young journalist, like, was it always kind of the idea to kind of tell both sides? Because obviously, like you said, you're like more of a Bernie guy, so
big time.
You have like your set of values, but to be able to kind of cover like people who you harshly disagree with, and show them, give them like a fair shake.
Definitely.
Was that difficult for you?
No, I've always been like that because, you know, I grew up, like I said, in the city, always around different kinds of people, exposed to different personalities. I also went to school in the Deep South in New Orleans. So it was like I got exposed to a ton of Southern stuff. So by the time I started my career, I was like, I want to show people on the West Coast what it's like in the South. I want to show people in the South what it's like where I'm from in Seattle. So I already felt like I had two different upbringings. But as far as like the unbiased thing, like I'm not unbiased. No human being is unbiased.
No, for sure. But I feel like you do a really good job of trying to like tell both, like tell the story as much down the middle as you can. And
definitely.
I just feel like that's something that is very like...
Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate it. I just wanted to make that point because there's so many journalists claiming to be unbiased, but I'm like, everybody has biases based upon how they grew up.
On the planet has a personal bias.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, shit, I used the example the other day, like, whenever the George Floyd thing happened, like, I had lost a couple friends growing up to police brutality. So as soon as that happened, I was sort of on board with, like, whatever had to happen. I saw buildings going up in flames, and I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, me too.
But if I grew up in, you know, Iowa, and my dad was the police chief in a town of 500 people, and he was rescuing cats from trees and helping people, you know, I might be like, come on, man, that's just one bad egg. But I didn't see it that way because of how I grew up, you know?
What is your perspective on those protests and riots, you know, what would it be, 5 years later now? Like almost 5 years, 4.5 years later? I feel like, you know, Black Lives Matter as a statement is obviously a factual statement. I feel like that the intent of that movement was pure and had great intentions, but somehow it got twisted and used against...
Well, I mean, if you look at every social movement that begins organically, there is people out there, grifters and profiteers, who will figure out a way to make an industry out of it. And the same thing happens with every social movement in America. It takes about 2 years, maybe 3 years, for, you know, Black Lives Matter LLC to become a donation farm to where people are just like embezzling and hoarding
mansions.
Money. That's what happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's more like, I feel like shame on somebody for not realizing that. Like, why are you giving money to Black Lives Matter 2.5 years later? I thought the protests were great. I think that they began very straightforward and organic. Like, this is about police brutalizing black people in the streets.
Period.
And then it took only about a month later, it kind of became about everybody. Right. You know, they added the black stripe to the pride flag, and you're seeing people out there, and I'm like, wait a second. You know, shout out to all the LGBT people out there, but I thought this was about police brutality against black Americans. And so you just sort of see this forced intersectionality obscure the message, and before you know it, it's not
what it was supposed to be.
It's not, and that's just what happens because white guilt is so powerful that you have white people who have any type of disadvantage, whether it be gender, income level, but mostly it's gender and orientation. Right. And they say, you know what, I don't want to be the scarecrow that people are throwing eggs at right now. I don't want to be part of the bad white out group during this protest movement. Let me figure out how I can join the side of the oppressor by giving myself something to stand on. So they're almost chasing down oppression to almost put it on their back, as opposed to the actual purpose of liberation, which is to get away from it. So it's very sad. You saw that especially in Portland, where, you know, you had groups actually obviously taking advantage of the social movement.
They ruined Portland downtown for...
Well, yeah, okay, that's one argument, but then if you look at why did downtown Portland, downtown SF, and downtown Seattle grow the way they did before COVID? It's because all these tech companies were getting tax cuts, so they moved their offices there.
And then they left. They once COVID happened, everyone left.
And they figured out...
They sucked a lot of resources out.
They figured out they could make more money having people work on Zoom
remotely
from home.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to pay HR. They didn't have to maintain these office buildings. So you have office buildings like in San Francisco that are 36 stories where only 2 of the floors are being used. The rest are vacant. And landlords don't want to go down on price for these tech apartments they built for the workers that are now living in Idaho or wherever they came from. So now you got homeless people on the streets everywhere in Portland and everywhere else, and then you have these fucking assholes coming out and being like, wow, look at the Democrat policy. And it's like, This is corporate elite fucking bullshit.
Yeah, I think that's like a perfect example of both, though. It's like it's two things can be true at the same time. It's like, yes, these tech cities where all of this massive income and all these people just decided to just be like, deuces.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And then the other side, like in the Bay, you know, it's like The Bay's crazy. I go to the Bay a lot. You know, it's like
Yeah,
the
the Bay
chances
is
of
crazy,
the chances
bro.
of you getting bipped out there or like just like you can't like. I mean, we started going a lot in like 2021.
Yeah.
because I was shooting a lot of content out there. And even like all the way up until maybe like late last year, it's like, damn, like the Walgreens are gone.
Yeah, it's the bipping is out of control, bro. I was by Lake Merritt in the RV like a year and a half ago. I'm chilling by Lake Merritt, bro. It's a beautiful day, probably 2 p.m. You know, Lake Merritt in downtown Oakland. So I'm chilling right there in the RV, and this valet guy comes up to me and he goes, "Don't park your car here." I go, "Why?" He goes, it's gonna get bipped. I go, "No, like I'm gonna stay in the car. It's gonna be fine." He's like, "Nah, don't even stay in the car." So I'm chilling in the car. I swear to God, I open the door to like, you know, just get some air, walk out for a second. A minivan pulls up, like a soccer mom van. 3 kids in full shiesties jump out of the car with bip tools in hands, like a ninja army, and start throwing like spark plugs on fucking wire and string into the car. Like it was seriously like a ninja
It's pretty
attack.
wild. Like my boy Samson, he was pumping gas, about to return his rental outside of the Oakland airport. So he's at the car. He's on the phone pumping gas, and before he knows it, his backpack in his backseat is gone, and he's running after a car that within seconds they got him.
Yeah.
Like the Bay's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and so there's certain shit like that where you that's not just income inequality. That is the cops and they're not doing their job,
right?
Like,
And that's also like at the end of the day, if there are loopholes that allow you to hit licks, you're gonna take advantage of those loopholes.
Yeah,
like it is what it is. You
and
know?
one thing that liberals don't understand is that some fools just like hitting licks. You know what I mean?
Like no matter what happens,
it's not like everyone hitting a lick is like, I can't afford food. Some fools love hitting licks. I grew up with people who are rich, middle class, and poor. They listen to Chief Keef all day. They're trying to hit a lick. It's not like they woke up with not being able to put cornflakes in the bowl.
Facts.
And I'm just saying that's something that you can't explain to people because they're like, what do you mean they like it? You think there's something about them genetically that makes them like, no, I didn't fucking say that. I just said fools be hitting licks.
Yes.
And they don't get it. You know what I mean? But we're not going to explain it to them. But if they live in this city for long enough and somebody hits a lick on your shit, you're not going to be like, wow, you know what? Even though they stole my car, I hope they can feed their family. Like, where do you think we're in? Fucking Darfur? This is, you know, I'm just saying.
Would you say, based on your you know, obviously your experience being up in the Northwest and covering Portland and covering the Bay, and I go back to your reference of Hamsterdam from The Wire, based on like just your experience and your perspective, because perspective matters, would you say the Hamsterdam model is one that is sustainable?
No, and here's why. Specifically, it might be sustainable if it was like a nationwide policy, but you got to think in all the bordering states to Washington and Oregon, Idaho, Montana, even Utah and states like that.
I lived in Boise.
It's illegal to be homeless in a lot of these states. They will put you in jail for your third vagrancy ticket for 90 days. They'll prosecute you. They'll burn your shit. You know what I mean? A lot of people get harassed, and and not only that, but I was in Austin, Texas one time, and I watched the city book 250 Greyhound bus tickets and sending homeless people from 7th Street in downtown to Portland.
What year was that?
That was before all this chaos, 2014.
Oh, shit.
You know what I mean?
Okay,
So
yeah.
this has been happening. So what happens is if Seattle says, you know what, we're going to enact harm reduction policies and open up a needle exchange or something like that for people to not get HIV and Hep C right here, all of a sudden these other counties, not even just different states, are like, okay, perfect. Now I know where to send 100,000 drug addicts. Yeah. And so it's impossible to maintain the Hamsterdam model when these different states have such different policies.